PRN photographers, what is the most awkward moment you had? What do you feel when you film? And how is your job generally? Not photographer here, but cinematographer. When I was at the beginning of my career, I accepted a proposal to work on a hard movie. After the second day of filming, the director approached me and told me, "It's clear you are a good cinematographer. I love how you manage the skin tones and mood." Just one thing. In this industry, it's not only the face that we want lit correctly. When I was 22, I was asked by a friend of mine to record he and his wife have sex. He said it didn't have to be weird because they weren't looking for a threesome or anything like that. I agreed because it sounded interesting, but the sex they had was extremely rough and unexpected. At one point he started crying while she was doing a certain something to his backside while wearing a large attachment, and I asked if he was alright, which caused him to get peeved and yell at me for interrupting them. I stayed quiet after that and kept recording when he was able to get back in the mood. After they were done, he left the room and his wife asked me to never to bring up him crying to him because he was sensitive about it. I of course agreed, and she hugged me then kissed me on my cheek, which I really didn't like because she was still naked and covered in sweat, and I just watched her eat his butt not more than 15 minutes prior. I was in AA when I was 19 and I learned that my then sponsor directed porn. Being an ambitious young man, I inquired about any job openings as an actor. He just shook his head and said, "You don't actually want to do porn. It smells bad." Right? Double quotation mark. Can someone link the video of the camera operator eating a donut while filming a scene? That was what first came to my mind. Worked on a set as security and observed that basically time is money. They want to get specific things on film and, at this time, photographed. That tension if things are not going smoothly or perfectly is not attractive. Production staff are simply trying to achieve all the goals and ensure they check everything off their list, and one inability to deliver causes them a lot of stress. Not a photographer, but I worked for an adult company and have been on multiple gay and hetero video sets. There is more poop and blood on a porn set than you think. Also a fair amount of vomit. I was once on set for a scene that involved faking accidental anal. So much poop. Then after the performer used the bathroom for an hour of douching, the scene continued. Every few minutes a cameraman or sound guy would wipe blood from the dude's D. They weren't willing to hold filming because they had a tight schedule and the empty mansion they were filming in had a real estate appointment meeting in it that night. I guess they get bored sometimes and fall asleep mid-shoot. https://yahoo b/8kairozetriq. This is a video of Day with a Pronster featuring Veronica Vane. At 2:36 you can see the guy sleeping casually. Lol. I'm a photographer who has on a few occasions taken photos of porn, usually for friends who have OnlyFans, but my story is from before I did so. A model reached out for me for a shoot. We chatted normally and talked out some minor details. Nothing explicit, just a bit of topless stuff. Mind you, I didn't know her at all. She was a random person who reached out on Instagram. She texts me and tells me that we are going to FaceTime at 12 AM. I insist that we can talk tomorrow and that I'm already in bed, and she persists that it's fine. I hate FaceTiming, especially with people I don't know, especially at midnight when I'm already cozy in bed. She calls me and is in the middle of taking a piss completely nude and drunk off her ass. I was taken aback and told her we can just talk tomorrow. She gets upset and says that we need to talk now so she can show me her body and her tattoos. She says this as she's wiping up. I was super skeeved out and hung up. Needless to say, I did not feel comfortable doing a photoshoot with her and I ghosted. I had to shoot the ugliest couple I have ever seen. Woman looked like a 6-foot ogre and man looked like a tiny Harry Potter with a soul patch. They had zero chemistry and she kept looking at his junk and trying to make this sultry face, but it looked like she was confused and disgusted by it. They also insisted on shooting in the hot tub, but she was the exact same color as the stucco behind it. I was the model for an act outdoor shoot and was posing on a pretty big boulder. Felt a tickling on my ass, looking there, and there was this lizard just chilling on my butt. Was so surprised I almost jumped off the rock. The photographer was very amused. I also learned that rock climbing naked is a lot of fun. Helpful 14. I used to shoot fetish and BDSM porn in college and for a few years after I graduated college. 2010-16ish. I have a degree in photography and was in Boy Scout, and I'm very good at knots, so a friend got me into it by helping tie up men and women and photographing them for her fetish site. This led to me doing tons of more work. The worst is feeder prawn work. These poor women would just eat and eat on camera and then vomit and gag all over themselves. It was pretty rough stuff to photograph and film. Also, it would make me kinda of sad because these women would gain large amounts of weight quickly between each time you'd work with them, and it just didn't seem healthy. As has been said already, the worst part is the smells. Group X scenes and the feeder scenes, the smells were enough to make you gag sometimes. Also, if you want to make decent money, you have to do both gay and straight scenes, which as a straight male at first is really odd, but you get used to it shockingly quick. The worst part is you become kinda numb to it all when you are behind the camera. Like, you will meet your model and she will be very attractive, but as soon as you're behind the camera it becomes very much so a job and you become focused on getting a good shot and the lighting correct. The awkwardness of them being naked and masturbating or having X in front of you disappears so quick. You sort of become numb to it all, to the point in your personal life nudity and X doesn't affect you the same. One of the most awkward things was when models would show up with their boyfriends who would just be like really weird and awkward in the set background. Like, it would almost always be buff military or former military dudes or wannabe MMA fighter types, and they'd stand cross-armed off to the side and being very encouraging to their girlfriends' boyfriends while watching them get fricked. I personally just always found that odd. I understand they came, I guess, to make them feel safe, but some of the weird things they'd say would always make you scratch your head. Only got came on once and it just grazed my leg. Got squirt droplets hit me a few times. Never really got involved with the scenes other than that and tying people up. Honestly, sets were much more professional than I imagined when I was younger. Most of the prawn girls were not like crazios who wanted to frick constantly, it was literally them turning it on and off for the camera. I worked with a smaller budget company, so I never saw fluffers, and I honestly question if they really exist. It would be common to see the guys sort of just casually be jerking off between shots to keep it up. Which is sort of weird. You'll be talking to them about asserting a shot up and they'd just be jerking it the whole time. Pay was pretty good. Usually on set days was about $60 an hour, paid out in 4 hours blocks, so even if you worked 6 hours you'd get paid for 8, which was cool. You're an independent contractor freelance even if you tend to just work for one company. I'm mostly out of that world now, with the occasional shooting for some girls who I've stayed in contact with to shoot for their OnlyFans pages. I don't shoot porn or even erotic, but I am a photographer who shoots a lot of art nudes, and my models range from first-time models who only shoot fully clothed to people who shoot porn. Before every shoot I give the model a safety talk, in which I say that I won't touch them, that I'll show them every shot I take, and tell them that if anything is making them uncomfortable I want them to speak up. I once had a model interrupt that talk to say my job is mainly shooting bondage and fetish porn. There is nothing that you are going to say or do that will make me uncomfortable. That felt awkward to me. I thought about it for a second and told her that I did not care what she did at other times, I was going to treat her like I treated every other model, and then I went on with my model safety talk. I have to admit that I am always a bit nervous working with a model who is new to me. Her saying that actually made me relax a bit during the shoot. There was an AMA on this a while back, you may be able to find something there. I believe the cameraman was doing VR porn at the time or something related to that. Former porn producer here. I've mentioned stories here on Reddit that were more sad than awkward, and though I didn't run the camera all the time, there was awkwardness abound. During setups it's common knowledge that the guy needs to either start getting hard or remain hard. In straight prom the woman will intimately interact with the guy to keep those juices flowing. In gay prom, back in 2003, the guys were straight, so they would watch straight prom. Or sometimes just stand there and jack off. On more than one occasion the guy would be jacking off and causally look at me and say sup while I was working. You can make the argument that he was probably gay, but I was the least attractive man on that set. On a straight prom set the guy was plowing the woman missionary style in between setups. The woman wanted a blanket from her car, but needed to tell me where the keys to her car were. So while getting fricked she was like, it's in my gym bag. Side pocket. I once opened a dishwasher in a prom studio to get a plate and found the whole top rack filled with dildos. They were used by performers doing live cam sessions. Some guy came up and was like, there's my favorite, and took a blue dildo from the rack. Devon Davis, the now deceased wife of Jonathan Davis of Korn, was best friends with Jill Kelly back when I worked for her. They did a photo shoot where they were eating each other's pussies, like 5 feet from my desk. Devon kept her wine glass on my desk and kept walking up to me like, you're getting hard hug. I really wasn't and just wanted to work without causing any waves since Jill was my boss. She later got mad because she demanded I picked up dogs from Jill's dog and I told her no. On a gay prom set this 5 feet 9 inches guy who had a massive 12 inches D was plowing this guy hard. Our set photographer, who was gay, was like, I took a D that big once and I got dizzy. Sure enough the scene stops and the bottom went to stand up and took a second step saying, man, I'm a bit dizzy. I guess some of those aren't really awkward, but the most awkward thing on every prom set is the whole crew sitting in silence watching a guy jack off. He announces when he's about to come and the crew, and woman man, swing into action to get the pop shot. Dude, I went to university, went had a job working as cameraman for some sleazy Euro prom guy in the 90s. This was long before prom was easily available on the internet. This guy had multiple times he was hit with cum by accident. I had a good friend who went to film school and ended up in LA trying to make it. He wasn't getting a lot of work, but through some connections he had met at a party he was offered a gig as a camera person on a prom shoot. He did it for a few years, as discreetly as possible. Apparently it's an open secret that many camera persons and even directors early on in their careers will do some moonlighting shooting prom. James Cameron began his career shooting prom. Edit, I did a little research on this and can't find a damn thing to back this up. Could be just an unfounded rumor. We had a really long discussion about it once and these are the big things I remember. The job can be really boring from a creative perspective. Most production companies were very rigid with the shots they wanted and it didn't leave much room for artistic license. Keep in mind this was like 15 years ago. Things may have changed. The worst part, by far, was the smell. Anyone that's ever shot a film indoors knows one of your greatest enemies is the massive heat generated by the lights and equipment. Imagine 2 people going at it for hours in a room that's getting steadily hotter. Add in anal and all bets are off. Drugs everywhere. Lots of male performers use some kind of Viagra coupled with other to desensitize their penis. Coke is rampant among female performers. The more professional production companies usually ran a tight ship with regards to drugs, but most of the amateur ones, lol, it was anything goes. A surprising number of cream pee shots are faked. Apparently it's harder for a male performer to come from vaginal stimulation than from just jacking off. Remember, lots of Viagra and hours of desensitized penis plus other drugs. So, when a cream pee needs to happen and the male performer can't do it, they use a special liquid that looks like cum and squirt it up into the vagina. Then they have the guy stick his penis in and after a few thrusts it looks like he came. He said you can usually tell because there's a telltale transition cut right before the cream pee shot. It's also why when there's an actual legit cream pee, the male performer will pull out and squirt a little bit to prove it was a legit cream pee. Everyone is surprisingly normal. They're just people doing a job for the most part. The industry has some a-holes and creeps, but in the mid to high tiers of the industry, people treat it like any other professional job. Actual pornographer here. I work for an independent studio in Los Angeles called Perv City, and I shoot pro-am scenes of my husband for our site slot inspection. Most awkward on a professional set was when we were shooting a normal MILF boy girl scene, no anal, and the male talent fingered the MILF so hard that she shot all over the couch. I love my job. I love creating porn. I really enjoy working with most of the people in the porn industry. I just wish we would do a better job to get rid of the predators. AMA. My uncle's best mate used to have his own photography business. He stopped about 8 years ago. He always mentioned a story where a woman approached him and asked him to take photos of her so she could give the album to her husband for his birthday. Fully naked pictures of her using X toys and so on. Anyway, she'd apparently been using a dildo on her and she was around 2 hours into the shoot. She finished with the dildo and was spreading her cheeks when a little nugget of poo came sliding out, which just so happened to be caught on camera with her showing a face of absolute horror. She got changed and left and paid for the pictures several weeks later, except the one of the Great Escape. I never did see those pictures, so can't say for certain. Not me, and he was a lighting guy, not a photographer. He worked with Ron Jeremy. Said the guy smelled like cabbage and had a reputation for not paying the crew. He got boned out of his money and went to Ron's house to get his money. Ron argued why he shouldn't get paid and finally paid up. He said the set was generally pretty sad. Lots of cocaine and crying. Set always smelled terrible even without Ron Jeremy in the room. He said he was pretty celibate for a while after working on the prawn set. Add a serious tag cause I want actual answers. I do boudoir photography as a side hustle, and you'd be amazed how quickly tasteful can turn into tacky or downright raunchy. And awkward? There's a ton of that just by virtue of the work, but here are my top 3 examples. A bride decided to do a photo shoot for her groom. She comes in with an assortment of outfits, progressively provocative, and one of them is the classic white bridal lingerie getup, which we decide to save for last. The shoot is going well, bride isn't nervous and is actually pretty fun and chill. She poses in some cool looks, like a Zafid baseball jersey to rep their team and a dorky ALF outfit to lie LOTR. We get to the end of the shoot and it's time for the Super Zai wedding night look. Bride touches up her makeup and she is looking hot. I send her off to get changed because the outfit consists of stockings, garters, a corset, the whole shebang, and I want her to have enough time for a good assortment of posing options. As I'm making a few adjustments to the lighting, I hear a scream from the back. I rush to the dressing area and call the bride's name. I find her, half dressed and sobbing, clutching one of her breasts. I look a little closer and there's blood on her hand and her breast. I ask her what happened, but she's too upset to speak. I ask if she can show me, so she moves her hand and then I freaking scream. It turns out she didn't know what the garter clip was for and mistook it for some type of kinky nipple clamp. The thing cut her so badly she ended up needing stitches. A few weeks later, we were able to rush an appointment for her to finish the shoot in time for her wedding. But she decided to leave the stockings and their accoutrements behind for the final go. 2. Another good one was when a young woman treated herself to a photo shoot for her 21st birthday. She said it was all about giving herself a confidence boost, but I had a hard time believing it because she was definitely the conventionally gorgeous type. I asked her about it and she was very candid. She explained that, while she was physically attractive and in great shape, for some reason, whenever a relationship started to get serious, the person would just ghost her. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out why that would be, so I told her as much. She got changed and we got started. Things were going smoothly and she was having a good time. She was an absolute knockout and a natural with posing. We were really enjoying ourselves, talking throughout the process and getting to know one another. The time came for some more close-up shots, so I talked through what that could look like, let her decide how she wanted to stage them and whether she wanted to be fully nude or partially. She decided on fully nude and went to the dressing area to get herself situated. She comes back and I have her take her robe off and stretch out on a chaise in the studio. I start with some full body shots and move a bit closer every few shots. I get to be about a foot away from her and I am hit with the most intense smell. I know that it can't possibly be coming from anywhere but her body. I get a little closer to confirm my suspicions and yup, it's definitely coming from her vagina. Now I am not in the all pussies smell camp at all. I mean, have you guys ever had your nose near some balls? So, I figure there has got to be something going on with this girl's health or hygiene and decide to bite the bullet and talk to her about it. I don't beat around the bush, I just say, hey, lady, I have to be honest with you, there's a bit of a smell down here. She doesn't even look surprised and she looks at me like I have 3 heads and tells me of course there is, I keep my flower wild. We get to talking about it in depth and I learn that not only does she not groom her pubic area, she also doesn't wash it. Her mother warned her against using feminine cleaning products and she took that to mean all cleaning products. Fam, I gave her a clothed demonstration of how I wash myself, handed her a bar of soap, and let her use the shower in my attached apartment to remedy that situation immediately. She came back with a smile on her face and a song in her heart and we finished the shoot without incident. That could have gone a whole different way, but to this day she tells me I changed her life. 3. I saved this one for last because it was the most awkward for me. I don't often shoot couples, for various reasons. However, a really good friend of mine asked very nicely and I always had a little crush on her so I said yes. I was confused though, because I'd never met her partner and was kind of surprised to hear she was dating someone and it was serious enough for an erotic photo shoot. She admitted it was new, but she was just so into him that she had to go for it. We set the date and talked logistics and all seemed fine. The day of the shoot comes around and I'm nervous. I hate couples shoots, y'all. They arrive and we do introductions. Something about the boyfriend seems familiar but also kind of off, but I just roll with things. They change clothes and we start off with some cheesy look into her eyes to ease into the naked stuff. We get into a rhythm and things are actually not terrible, so we take a break to get ready for the next set of shots. This is where it gets awkward. The boyfriend comes out first and he just kind of stares at me. He starts talking and tries to pull the whole "you're too pretty to be behind the camera" thing and I'm like, dude, chill. Then he looks at me with a weirdly intense expression and asks, do you remember me? To which the only answer, dear reader, was hell the frick no. My friend, his girlfriend, returns and I can't wait to get started so we can be finished. As soon as they remove their robes, it gets really awkward. I notice boyfriend has a small tattoo on his left hip depicting a sort of hipster arrow adventure situation. That looked familiar, friends. But then, I look over at his right hip and see a tattoo of similar size with my fucking, and rather uncommon, name. And that's when I remember the guy. I went on 3 dates with him, over the course of 2 weeks, and then broke it off with him because he had some serious red flags. My friend notices my face and is like, oh, yeah, the tattoo. That's his one that got away from a while back. Weird that you have the same name though. I look at her and I know I can't lie, so I flat out say, UHH, I think that is my name. Her boyfriend then starts crying and coming toward us both, naked and with a very confusing erection, calling out, not for his current girlfriend of nearly 6 months, but for me. I note the frick out of there and let them talk. It gets awfully quiet so I head back in to check on things, only to find my friend is nowhere to be found and her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend? is quietly sobbing and masturbating in the middle of the studio floor. I just left him there and sent my guy friend to get him out of there for me while I checked on the girlfriend. She broke up with him on the spot and left because she couldn't face me. She made sure he still paid me, though, and promised to never ask me to do a couples shoot again. I did eventually do a solo shoot with her, but that's a tale for another thread entirely. Wink wink. Edit. Holy sh, this blew up. Thanks all for reading. 3 quick things. Yes, I know it's stockings Jesus H. Christ. I used speech to text for part of it and it's freaking Reddit, not grad school, so I didn't proofread. Stinkerpuss wasn't even washing around her vagina. She ended up having to use some type of cream from her GP because there was a ton of bacteria from years of neglect. She and I are friends now, and yes, she knows I call her Stinkerpuss, even though it's no longer a grave propus of her situation. Regarding my friend in story 3, obviously we boned. She does not have my name tattooed on her body. As for the guy, he is somehow still single and I wish him well. Edit 2. Electric Boogaloo. Enough people have asked for the story behind number 3 that I've decided I should just share it. 2. Friends, see my comment reply below for story 3A. Before you read, please play the song Bestie by Sizzy Rocket. Thanks and enjoy. I've met quite a lot of people in the industry in Japan, but one guy, a still photographer, really sticks out. Super creepy dude from Northern Europe, got his kicks showing random people at the bar I was working at his work. It was a bit funny with regulars, but you could tell it made a lot of people uncomfortable after a while. His sh was niche as hell though, so most people probably didn't know what they were shown given a quick glance. As far as hearing how he liked the work, it seems like a lot of his work was so niche it didn't really hit him in a exile way, but judging from his actions and way of speaking around others, I'm sure there was more to him than I could see at the time. Well, there's that one video of the cameraman that got hit with some of the money shot in the face by complete accident. I've shot a lot of fetish and boudoir, and for the most part, it's like shooting anything else. My mind gets focused on light, shadows, composition, etc. rather than look, there's someone's gaping butthole. Shooting adult content is a lot less glamorous than people think. I've had past partners ask to bring the camera into the bedroom. It's fun, but if you're going to get good content, it's not super high, there's a lot of starting and stopping to adjusting lights, set up timers, etc. Who on AskReddit I can actually respond to. I'm a makeup artist in the prawn world. I'm there on set all the time, so I see it all. Nothing has really been awkward for me. I'm pretty laid back and it all just seems pretty natural for me, just like people doing their jobs. I guess the most awkward moment is if I can tell the two actors don't have chemistry or they're not attracted to each other. I feel like it shows on film. That's the only moment I could describe as being awkward. Oh, actually it was really awkward for me this one time filming a gangbang. I went into a different room to clean my brushes and one guy took a break from the gangbang to come and talk to me. He was stood there naked and masturbating while asking about my job. I've seen literally everything, but it was pretty awkward. One guy leaving a room from banging a porn star to come and talk to me about nothing multiple times. He was twice my age too. I asked him if he was probably needed on set and he agreed. Some people have mentioned fake cum, and yeah, it is used sometimes. Usually they'll get the real cum shot and use the fake one to get a better angle if needed. Like if he was aiming for the tits and misses, we'll use the fake one to make it look hotter. I've been a spare set of hands on set before and have been the one to jizz on an actress. Job in general is awesome. I met some really cool people and have made some awesome friends. I don't get turned on during filming before you ask, except maybe this one scene where it was one girl and two really attractive guys that were also both bi and all really enjoying themselves. Was a bit gel, haha. It is pretty hot when I can tell the actors are super into it and enjoying themselves. I also knelt down one time to pick something up and got covered in squirt. That was pretty funny. I've had to put makeup on butts that were covered in bruising from BDSM shoots they'd had before. Also put makeup on nipples that they wanted to look pinker. I can't think of other funny things that happen if you're all interested. Most things aren't awkward honestly, they're all just human bodies and things happen. I guess most people that would find bodies awkward wouldn't be working in the porn industry. Maybe I'm a bit late, but feel free to ask any questions. I've got nothing to do today. I was filming a scene with two girls freaking. It's not uncommon at all to sit lay on the bed to get better shots. One girl ended up squirting more than I've seen in my 30 years as a lesbian, and it went all over me. Not only that, but I had to stay laying in the puddle for a few minutes before I could switch angles. I used to do adult photo shoots and ran multiple sites for individual models and general commercial stuff. I got a girl to frick herself with a rubber chicken for a light-hearted shoot. She had a good sense of humor, so we were cracking up the whole time. I was responsible for all the creative work and themes, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Add to that many of my clients' models weren't the most stable people. I was all business. I just wanted to get the work done so I could get to the editing and publishing. I didn't get paid for gawking at boobs, I got paid for publishing content. Former studio manager, we did a few things, including prawn. Mostly a professional, maybe jaded, work environment, so nothing really was out of the ordinary for us. However, there was one performer who used to take a break from filming at 5 PM to receive a phone call from her prison-bound boyfriend. He was a convicted pedophile who had groomed her since she was 14. A real piece of who had used his fame to take advantage of dozens of vulnerable women and girls. Very uncomfortable. Stays with me nearly a decade later. Edit team, not sure how happy I am revealing his name. Let's just say he took the last train home. Back when I was a broke out of work photojournalist, I would take all sorts of photo gigs to make ends meet, including some adult content. After one of the jobs, the model client, her makeup girl, and I went to a diner to go over the photos and decide which ones I would touch up. She'd been fasting to look skinnier for the shoot, so she wasn't too picky on where we stopped. When we got there, she practically ran to the corner booth before ordering a huge burger. There were well over 1,000 shots, so going through them took a while. Surprisingly, our waiter was incredibly attentive the entire time, despite us sitting there well after the food had been finished. I don't think our waters or coffees were ever less than half full, and he kept reassuring us that we could stay as long as we needed. It was almost annoying how he kept checking on us every few minutes. Once we had narrowed it down to a couple of dozen photos to be touched up, we paid the tab and got up to leave. That's when I noticed the giant mirror right behind the booth. Every time the waiter came over, he got an explicit eyeful of the woman sitting next to me on my laptop screen. Thankfully, the model wasn't exactly bashful about her body and found it hilarious. Explaining the weird stuff like, okay, we have line you two up so that she can swallow you whole, like a python. Or we need to stick these tracking dots to you so the software can put in the extra breasts. Or okay, you have make out with the mannequin. Be careful not touch the back of her head, it will knock the camera and make loose, and so on. Honestly, since I did the effects stuff, my mind was on how to get it done. Shooting prawn is not it is work. You learn detachment quickly. Helps I wasn't into anything I was shooting to. I don't do it anymore. Right around the last economic crash, no one was buying, and models were harder to find, so it tipped over to just not worth it. I sometimes think about shooting again, but I have none of the resources anymore. No talent pool, studio, gear or anything. But I bet I could hit movie quality with the stuff out now. I worked as a photographer on prawn sets shortly back in 2011. It's like any other job. Nothing awkward happened during my year. Most sets have 5 to 12 people, it's fairly professional. I try to do the best to take the best angles of the girls. Work was steady, but I made roughly $30,000. which was considered low back in 2011. I ended up freelancing and starting my own business. A lot of the girls who are traveling strippers supported me early on. Professional photographer. I used to take photos of ex dolls, the real expensive ones that cost thousands of dollars. I had my studio in my garage because my house was too small for any other room. It was the middle of summer and it was starting to get hot in the garage. Since I was alone, I undressed completely because I was just sweating profusely. These dolls are not easy to position. Their bones are metal and are very heavy. Think an actual girl would at least help you move correctly. Well, as I was grabbing one and moving it into position, my wife walks in the garage, to which I screamed, "This isn't what IT looks like." She knew I was photographing them naked, but she just couldn't stop laughing. I took a job during college that required me to film fisting at a hotel. The smell was the most putrid, horrible smell you can imagine. I only did it twice, because the last time I was hired, about midway through the shoot, apparently there was not enough lube applied to the receiver's jelly donut. The sheer force of the fist, which actually looked more like punching a wet paper bag than some delicate procedure, caused a rip in this guy's a-hole and we had to rush him to the hospital in my car. There was all kinds of fluid leaking onto my backseat. Some of it looked clear and some it was blood. Never again, not even for what they were paying me. When I was 18, I started shooting porn for the owner of our local ex-toy store chain. I answered an ad on Craigslist. I was shooting a scene of him and his girlfriend and he nicked the inside of his D on her tooth in a hardcore blowjob scene. Shot blood like a water pistol with every heartbeat for about a minute or so. He was 50 or so and we shot with his 18-year-old girlfriend, who I knew from a different school and had basically run away from home. She lived with him and was kept in a strict BDSM relationship, wearing a collar that purposely limited head movement, 24/7. She took care of his kids in between shooting dildo scenes with me. Totally healthy everything. Another time we hired a random guy by putting a sign in his toy store with a picture of his girlfriend and the W caption, "You wanna frick this?" Who showed up to the hotel, couldn't get hard, completely normal, performance pressure is a thing, then drank an entire fifth of rum in 10 minutes, tried to do it soft. He got so sad but couldn't show it, so then he drove off. Which the producer allowed him to do. This was a truly terrible experience for me. The way X can be so degrading to everyone involved if it's controlled by toxicity and shitty values. So now I make ethical porn. That shows how X can be lovely and consensual and not incredibly abusive. Truly awesome. Support your local ethical porn makers, y'all. 3. This Reddit post is going to make one of those videos recorded with a robotic voice, I know. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a comment.